I was designing and creating the look for Seven Terraces, especially in the reception area, it was going back to a time when I was imagining what a 1920s mansion would have. And at that time, it was very fashionable for wealthy, middle class, upper middle class to have opium beds, because opium was very, very popular as the narcotic of choice. Well, it can be either narcotic or as a medicine, depending on how you use it. At the reception in Seven Terraces, we have 4 of these quite amazing large opium beds that are encrusted with mother of pearl on the surface. And the reason why mother of pearl is used as a decoration for these beds and also for the rosewood or blackwood is that blackwood and rosewood grows very, very slowly, and so the grains are very fine. It's very hard to carve into it, and so the mother of pearl is used as a layer of decoration on top to recreate the depth and the texture on the furniture. Now, why were these beds associated with opium? I suppose when one is intoxicated or one is smoking and chilling out with opium with a friend or on your own, it tends to put you into a very sleepy, zonked out state. And so one tends to be lying down on these surfaces. And it's important to have surfaces that cools down the body. So normally the wooden bed surface, the wooden surface and the marble surface sometimes is generally a good way of cooling down the body while you're smoking, as a balance to the harmful effects of smoking in the body. So, what actually is opium? Well, opium is from the poppy flower, and it's the most raw form of narcotic that is derived from the poppy flower. From that, through different ways of processing, you derive actually the modern painkillers, or very strong painkillers like morphine, codeine, etc. So, and heroin, yes. So, and you know how addictive heroin is. So, it's the mother of all the drugs that are causing issues, if it's taken as a recreational, for recreational purposes. So how did this get into the community and is accepted as, a form of relaxation? Opium did destroy a lot of lives, but from what I hear, it's also a very useful long-term pain suppressant for those suffering from terminal illnesses. So that was how it was used in Nanyang or the Far East, as far as I know, from just oral history that's been passed down. Now, how did opium get into the population? Well, you've heard of the Opium Wars in the 19th century, when China was exporting silk and tea and all sorts of precious things to the West and to Southeast Asia, porcelain, and they really had nothing to buy. Earlier on, they were buying silver for their coins and as a form of currency. But at the end of the day, the vessels were going one way empty and coming out with goods. So what did the West want from China? They wanted to redress the balance of trade that was not in its favor for the Western countries. So one of the biggest traders with China was the British, through the British East India Company. So they came up with this brilliant idea of exporting opium grown in India into China. Of course, when it was in a small scale, no one really noticed this, but when it became very, very popular, and when the Emperor Tao Guang in the early 19th century got very moralistic about this, and so he should have been, because the 19th century saw, I suppose, the decline of China as a superpower, because you had the effects of opium damaging the life force of the population. Opium was labeled a narcotic, but most people who had the apparatus, the pipes, the heads, whatever it is you needed to use to consume opium, they basically destroyed them as well, thinking that it was illegal to own them, but actually it wasn't. So there's actually very few examples of opium pipes and heads that were actually used by people in the 20th century or 19th century. I was very lucky to come across a few odd pieces, and I put together a collection on one of the opium beds to basically demonstrate what and how it was used. It's a little bit like the shisha, and there's also another way of having opium, which is through the water pipe, the brass water pipe, which cools it down as well. That was another innovation. I think in the end, the romance or the mystique of the opium dens basically petered out with the Second World War and the Japanese invasion and occupation of Malaysia. And after that, it was phased out as people understood the effects of opium, and then they could get more modern, refined versions of painkillers. So I think it's great to preserve the heritage and the paraphernalia.